McDonald's is one of America's most famous fast food companies. It was founded in 1940 and now has over 38,000 locations around the world. In your town, on a road trip, or traveling the world, you are bound to have McDonald's as a fast food option. In fact, about 69 million people eat at McDonald's every single day. I'm sure you have a go-to order that you like, but have you ever thought about what you should order? Well, I'm Matt. I'm an aerospace engineer, and I wanted to take a closer look at deciding what to eat at your local McDonald's. Start by looking at the raw data in itself. There are five categories that we're looking at: calories, protein, carbs, fat, and cost. Calories, protein, carbs, and fat I took directly from the McDonald's website. Cost. This is probably variable by area you're in, but should generally change, similar. If the costs are higher in an area, then the costs should all be higher. If the costs are lower in an area, then they should all be lower. But this was taken from fastfoodprice.com. Looking at the main items on a lunch or dinner menu, we have your Big Mac, your quarter pounder with cheese, double quarter pounder with cheese, a quarter pounder with cheese deluxe, McDouble, quarter pounder with cheese and bacon. Everyone loves the bacon. Cheeseburger, double cheeseburger, hamburger, crispy chicken sandwich, 20-piece chicken McNuggets, and your 10-piece chicken McNuggets. The 10-piece price seems a little high. Fastfoodprice.com mentioned that that was a 2 for 5. But if you're just buying the 10-piece by itself, it's still $4.59. Moving on to breakfasts, we have the sausage biscuit with egg, bacon, egg, and cheese McGriddle, sausage McGriddle, sausage, egg, and cheese McGriddle, bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit, egg McMuffin with eggs. And then you have the standard sides of a small fry, a medium fry, and a large fry for your normal meals, and then hash browns for your breakfast meal. I wanted to look into two different other characteristics: protein per dollar and cost per dollar. So we're going to move on to breakfast protein per dollar. So here I simply took the protein and divided that by the cost. So, and then I sorted this sheet from highest protein to least amount of protein. It kind of makes sense that the hash browns so I also added the hash browns to this sheet to put all the breakfast items on one page. It kind of makes sense that the hash browns have the least amount of protein because there's no meat in the meal. So that makes a lot of sense. But if you're just trying to be a cheapskate and get a lot of protein, you should probably think about getting a sausage McMuffin. I guess main reason that the sausage McMuffin with eggs is lower than the sausage McMuffin is just because it's so much cheaper to just buy the plain sausage McMuffin. To the lunch and dinner type menu, I did the exact same thing. Again, you divide the protein by the cost. The double cheeseburger is the cheapest for amount of protein per dollar that you're getting because its cost is only $1.89, and you're getting 25 grams of protein versus the I guess most expensive amount of protein per dollar is the small fries. The large fries, you're getting more, so it's cheaper. So therefore, it kind of makes sense that you're getting more protein per dollar. Moving on to probably my favorite characteristic that I looked at is the calories per dollar. So you're simply dividing the calories by the cost, and your most cost efficient breakfast item to get is the sausage biscuit. versus the least worthy of like calories per dollar item is the Egg McMuffin at only 86 calories per dollar. Moving on to lunch and dinner, we have the exact same thing. The amount of calories divided by the cost, and the most cost efficient thing, of course, coming from the dollar menu, because where else would it come from, is the hamburger, where you're getting 252 calories per dollar that you're spending. And then the least expensive, kind of coming from what I said earlier, of the 10-piece chicken McNuggets at 91 calories per dollar. So now moving on to the recommended daily value that you should have per day per item. So this is excluding costs. Cost is not a factor, but we're just going to look at what health.gov recommends. So health.gov recommends you should have 2,000 calories, 50 grams of protein, 270 grams of carbs, and 78 grams of fat. I made a score for each item, and that score was based off assuming you eat 3 meals a day, and each meal has a third of that total amount of food. So, and then this score is sum of basically how far you are away from perfect for that day. And I use absolute value 1 minus the score, so that the further you are away from the goal amount, the lower your score is, or the higher your score is. And because of that, the lowest score is actually the best, because it's closer to what you should be having in an ideal day. I'm not really that proud of this score, but I think it gives you a good picture about how close you are to being to the recommended daily values. We all know fast food isn't quite the healthiest, but the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit is closest to the third of a day values that health.gov recommends. The lunch and dinner menus, I did the exact same scoring system. This time, we see that the protein is typically much further away from the recommended daily values. So you're getting a lot more protein, and therefore, because you're getting so much protein from this meal, it's less recommended and less close to the daily value. Or so they're kind of punished. So surprisingly, large fries is actually the second closest to the recommended daily value for a meal that you should have. But the closest is the buttermilk crispy chicken sandwich. Now moving on to the, I guess, main scoring system and why we developed each of the previous scoring values. We're going to look at calories, protein, carbs, fat, cost, protein, and calories per dollar. For each item, I divided the highest amount, or the amount by the highest amount. So the perfect score is the highest amount in each category, except for cost. In the cost value, I divided that cost by the cheapest and did 1 over that. So the cheapest item of $1.19 on the breakfast menu has a perfect score of 1, and then the most expensive at $3.59 has a bad score of 0.33. Now we're going to look at 4 different types of people. I mean, not everyone falls into these categories, but this sheet is shared below the video, so you can find out your own person. But we're gonna look at your gym person who thinks protein, protein, protein. That's all I care about. Then your cardio person who can eat pretty much whatever they want, as much as they want, but they want carbs because who doesn't like to carb load? Then we're going to look at our minimalist cheapskate who just wants the cheapest thing there. Then lastly, we're going to look at an all-around Joe who just wants a decent share of everything. So your gym person, we're going to start off with 70% they care about protein, and then 30% they care about protein per dollar. Looking at the scores, it looks like the highest score of 0.95. I recommend getting a sausage McMuffin with egg from this data here. So let's zero that out and look at our cardio person who can eat pretty much whatever. 40 and 30. Looking at the scores, anything higher than 0.87. Based off the data, I'd recommend you getting a sausage biscuit. If you can eat pretty much whatever you want. If you can eat 2 or 3, all the better. Moving on to our minimalist cheapskate. 30, 20, 50. It looks like, again, the scores are actually pretty close. So a sausage McMuffin has a 96, and then a sausage biscuit has a 95. Then in third place would be the sausage McMuffin with egg, which is quite a bit off. So this is probably mostly affected by the cost value because the cost is so much higher, it being $1.19. So let's look at our average Joe. So 14% across the board, except for the last category of protein per dollar and cost per dollar. That's just so we don't have to deal with messy fractions. So from this, I'd recommend getting a sausage biscuit. Surprisingly, a sausage biscuit was one of the top ones for almost all the items, or all our typical people. So I guess in the end, if you're looking at the breakfast menu, I'd recommend getting a sausage biscuit. Now let's move on to the lunch and dinner type menu. Again, same scoring system, just different items, different menu. So let's look at that protein gym bro type person. 0.88. Looks like 0.88 is the best, which is the double quarter pounder with cheese. Is your best item as a gym bro thinking protein is all I want from McDonald's. So now let's zero that out and look at your cardio enthusiast who can eat almost whatever they want. So that's back at 100. Let's see, 0.82, anything higher than 0.82. 0.82, your best, cheapest item that this data recommends is a large fry. So if you want to just make a menu or a meal out of large fries, I recommend getting a large fry. Now let's look at our minimalist cheapskate. This is kind of scaring me that it will be a large fry again. Looks like I was wrong. And the best item for your cheapskate, for being a cheapskate, is a hamburger, which makes sense. It's off the dollar menu and therefore is the cheapest. It gives you a good amount of protein. It gives you a good amount of calories per dollar just because it is the cheapest item. Luckily, I was wrong with that one. But let's move on to your all-around average Joe. So again, 14 across the board, 15 for protein per dollar and cost per dollar. We're gonna look at, it looks like 0.74 is the highest for this one. So if you're just your average Joe trying to get your biggest basis kind of across the board, I'd recommend getting a 20-piece chicken McNugget. Down below is a link to the McDonald's menu, health.gov recommendations, and fastfoodprice.com, where I got the cost from. Also, below is a link to the sheet I used to make the menu so that you can take a closer look if you have any questions, or you can edit the percentages below to figure out what these numbers would recommend that your order at McDonald's for breakfast or the normal menu should be. Also, leave a like if it made you rethink your order that you get at McDonald's, and leave a comment on either your old order or your new order. Thanks. Have a good one.